What's going on, y'all? Minutes with Mellon. Try to take long videos, make them shorter. So, let's just burrow right on into it. So this week in politics, what happened? So this is a post from Elon Musk. Overall, this is what will happen if she wins. 20 million illegals become citizens. Ban gas-powered cars. Replace police with social workers. Ban fracking. Transgender surgeries for minors. And they don't even include transgender surgeries for illegals. That's been, she wants that to happen too. For taxpayers pay for that. Taxpayer-funded reparations pack the U.S. Supreme Court, so pretty much stack it to where whatever happens, they'll win, make it a democratic Supreme Court. Government big tech censorship, which is still going on to this day, currently. It needs to be stopped. Cashless bail for violent criminals. That happened when, when they had the huge riot in Minnesota? Federal takeover of all elections. They're currently doing that right now. That's why they're bringing in all the illegal fucking immigrants. They're gonna rush and make them all citizens, and that's why you got 20,000 illegal fucking Haitians in Springfield. I guarantee that's 20,000 Democrat votes. It's gonna be crazy. Taxpayer dollars to fund abortions. Enforce racist affirmative action mandate vaccinate. Oh, that one pisses me off. Ooh, require government approval to buy a gun. Get the fuck out of here. So yeah, that cracked me up. So they had a Senate hearing on weaponization of the federal government, and Massie just went off on this guy. They've had 4 years to look all this shit up, and he's it's ongoing investigation. That's all they keep fucking saying. That's crazy. But yeah.
About it, and we have followed up, and I can speak to you about that.
I mean, they keep saying it's an ongoing investigation, but they've got no leads, no suspects. They've lost information. They've lost evidence. They can't find evidence. Secret Service deleted all of its texts on January 6th. Steve D'Antuono, the guy in charge of Washington, D.C. field office, says that the cell phone data that could have been used to find the bomber was corrupted. And now we just I found out from another inspector general, and I want to submit this for the record.
Objection.
Yeah. I asked him, do you have the footage, the video footage, does the FBI have the video footage of the DNC on January 6th? And he tells me when he asked the FBI for the video footage, they don't even have video footage of the DNC that we know was created on January 6th. It's almost, I mean, so it's almost as if they don't want to know. Can you rule out that there were any confidential human sources involved in the whole pipe bomb thing on January 6th?
I'm not, I'd have to go back, Congressman, and refresh myself on what information we've gathered to date on this.
Is there any consideration for the election about the release of this report? Would you delay it in order to not release it right before the election?
At this point, given the process that has to play out in terms of classification review and all of that, I'm not making any, I don't have to make any judgment about that. We're still, that still has to go on. Just to give you a sense of it, when I did the Pfizer.
You're saying it's not even going to be done in time for before the election?
It doesn't, I doubt it would be done in time for the election.
Is it going to be done before the inauguration?
That is certainly my hope.
It's your hope. We're 4 years into it, and we know what we do know is you're going to expose that there were confidential human sources at the Capitol. Can you tell us today how many went into the Capitol?
I'll have that information in the report. I'm not able to speak to information in there, both because it's in draft and we get response from the
That's fucking crazy. So,
department and the FBI,
Okay.
but also because
Right.
I don't know yet what's classified and not classified.
So if they broke the law, if they went into the Capitol, which we pretty much know there were confidential human sources who went into the Capitol and right there alongside of everybody else, wouldn't they need to follow DOJ CHS protocols? And do you know if those were followed?
They should.
so that's smart because he's asking for like travel vouchers, who has to be reimbursed for food and tickets for their flight. So that's another way to catch them. But they've destroyed everything. Like, it's crazy. I'm just gonna play a little bit of this.
Mr. Horwitz, you said you've not seen a pattern, but you have found evidence, or let me do it as a question. Have you found any evidence of a focus on religion and vaccination status playing a role in discussions about clearance decisions?
We certainly did as to Mr. Allen.
Of course. I mean, that's the whole point. I thought, you know, his email questioning the leadership at the FBI, they used that. They used his vaccination status. They used his religion. I thought pretty soon they were going to accuse Marcus Allen of writing discussions. I find very troubling. In the opening, in the sort of the preamble before they get to the questions, they say they're asking colleagues to rat on fellow colleagues. They say, you are being asked to provide information as a fact witness. Should you refuse to answer or fail to reply, action against your security clearance may be undertaken. So I find this amazing. Like, they're going to a colleague in a security clearance investigation. They're asking a colleague to talk about that individual, and if they don't, they're going to lose their security clearance. I mean, that, and then when you look at the question, do you find that a little troubling, Mr. Horwitz? Pretty. And oh, by the way, here's the question. Did Mr. Allen ever voice support for President Trump? Did Mr. Allen ever express concerns about the COVID-19 vaccination? Did Mr. Allen ever attend a gun rally? That is as troubling as it gets. And right at the top of this questionnaire, FBI Security Division, Security Integrity and Investigation Section, Clearance Investigation Unit. Mr. Levitt, have you ever seen anything like this?
Not before this last round of whistleblowers, a couple of precision.
Environment of fear. And this is it in practice, right here. That is what is scary. So if that's not weaponization of government, earlier Ms. Crockett asked about would the weaponization of government include certain things. It would certainly include this in the environment described by Mr. Allen, and it would certainly include the 27 months that he had to live through and the 24 months now Garrett O'Boyle has had to live through.
Just for saying, hey, you're supposed to be free to, you know, you're a whistleblower protection. You're supposed to be free to be like, hey, they're doing fucked up shit over here. Hey, the FBI is doing, you know, they're having my fellow colleagues ask me if I support Trump in a questionnaire, and if they don't answer the way they like, then they're going to lose their security clearance and possibly get fired. Like, what the fuck is going on? So yeah, that weaponization government shit's still going on. Unbelievable. And then this
Money for sexual misconduct inside of the offices in these buildings. And what's more is that was taxpayer money, right? The allegation is that President Trump paid $130,000 of his own money. But here in Congress, there may be some on this dais. I mean, I'm for turning loose all of these records. Who in here has had the taxpayer pay for their sexual misconduct charges the hush money? I bet there's some over there. There may be some over here. I don't know, but I do know it's taxpayer money, and I do know not a single penny of it has been turned in as a campaign finance expense. Is the FEC going to investigate the $17 million that the Congress has paid to settle, behind closed doors these sexual misconduct allegations?
You can't make.
That's crazy. 17 million. This next one is pretty fucking scary. This is how terrible she is.
Someone with a misdemeanor, the lowest level offense possible.
And by virtue of that swipe of my pen, you will have to go to a courthouse and stand in line. You will have to come out of pocket and hire an attorney. You may get arrested for a few hours. You will be embarrassed in your community. You will miss time from coming onto the Google campus. All because with the swipe of my pen I've charged you with a crime, which I may choose to dismiss 2 weeks later. It's an incredible amount of power. And you want to make sure that the people who have this kind of power are taking seriously the responsibility.
So let's talk about Kamala and the swipe of her pen and how she tried to give me 15 years at 23 years old and take me away from my 2-year-old daughter and ruin my career. I was driving down the street. I was young, 23 years old, working at a mortgage company, the largest in the world, making about 300 grand, which is pretty good at 23 years old, almost 25 years ago when there wasn't social media. Had a flashy car, a bunch of jewelry because I'm young and dumb, and I get pulled over. Because of the way I look, tattoos, fancy car, jewelry, they illegally search me, find 4 Vicodin pills that the dentist prescribed me for a root canal, but I didn't have them in a pill bottle. I didn't know it's illegal to carry them just loose in your pocket. So they smile while they arrest me, and I find out they charge me with 3 felonies: possession of a controlled substance, transportation of a controlled substance, and possession of a controlled substance to sell. So I had to go get a lawyer, spend 10 grand to represent me, and I asked him how the can they charge me with possession to sell and possession to, like, for myself. It's one or the other, isn't it? Long story short, Kamal and them wanted to lock me up for 15 years and said there's no way this guy's getting off without a felony. My lawyer says this guy's a brand new father. He works at a mortgage company 60 hours a week. He made an honest mistake. This should be knocked down to a misdemeanor at best, or not just drop the charges altogether. Kamal and them said no way, this guy's going to prison over 4 Vicodin pills. So my lawyer said, Shane, don't worry, Kamal is a joke. She doesn't know how to do her job. She's an idiot. I'll get you off the first time I talk to a lawyer. So I go to the pretrial hearing to see if there's enough evidence for them to prosecute me, and my lawyer said he dropped all charges for an illegal search warrant. So there, I think it's done. Me and my lawyer celebrate. We go and get lunch. And before I even can get home, Kamala, because she doesn't like to lose and she wants to lock up an innocent father for 15 years, refiled charges saying that my lawyer blindsided her with an illegal search warrant. So with that stroke of her pen, she just cost me more money, because now I got to pay my lawyer another $2,500 to show up in court to get these charges dropped again. So I get my day in court 2 weeks later, same verdict. But this time the judge looks at Kamala and says, if I see him in my courtroom again, it's going to be your ass and on the line, not his. Shane, I apologize, and you're free to go with all charges dropped. But that's what Kamala wanted to do with her pen. And you want to give her the power of the presidency? No way are we going to allow that to happen.
Kudos to that judge for standing up to.
Yeah, evil. And then this just came out earlier today. I saw this like, what?
Development on the border crisis. Wait until you hear this. The Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement confirms that more than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States. The letter here tells the tale. Hello, I'm John Roberts in Washington. You believe
13,000 illegal people convicted of murder and then released into the United States. What the fuck is going on?
this, Sandra?
Which means they are here, and this is just an unbelievable development. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. Good to be with you, John. This is America Reports. Let's get right to Bill Malugin. He's got this news for us. He's set to visit later this afternoon.
Yeah, and Sandra, bear with me. We just got these numbers moments ago, but it's a jaw dropper to say the least. So to set the stage here, let me just explain what these numbers mean. ICE has something called a non-detained docket. Essentially what that is it means migrants who were encountered by DHS but are no longer in federal custody. So who's on this non-detained docket? It's illegal immigrants who were caught and released at the border, released with the court, been ordered deported from the country by a judge, but are still here roaming the country. So keep that in mind, this non-detained docket. According to a letter that the acting director of ICE just sent to Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez, on ICE's non-detained docket, they're currently tracking 425,000 non-citizens who have been convicted of a crime. Of that number, over 13,000 non-citizens have convictions for homicide and are on the non-detained docket, meaning they're roaming the country right now. On top of that, there are another 15,811 non-citizens convicted of sexual assault who are roaming the country right now on ICE's non-detained docket. It doesn't stop there. Those are convictions. The ICE director also says there are currently just under 1,900 non-citizens on the non-detained docket who have pending homicide charges who are roaming the country, and another 4,250 non-citizens who have pending sexual assault charges who are roaming the country on the non-detained docket. So people's eyes might be glazing over right now with all the numbers we just threw at you. Just to put it in a nutshell right here, what we've learned from the acting ICE director via this letter to Congressman Tony Gonzalez is right now there are over 13,000 illegal aliens convicted of homicide who are roaming the United States right now. There are another 15,811 illegal aliens roaming the country right now who have been convicted of sexual assault, and there are even more who are facing charges for homicide and charges for sexual assault. So this just goes to show, guys, the non-detained docket has exploded under the Biden administration to over, I believe it's 7.3 million. They're anticipating it could hit 8 million by the end of the year. But looking at the numbers on this letter right here, there are currently over 600,000 non-citizens on ICE's non-detained docket who are either convicted, 600,000 non-citizens on this non-detained docket who are roaming the country right now. Of that, 425,000 have already been convicted of crimes. 222,000 are pending crimes. And again, the most serious crimes we just told you about, over 13,000 convicted of homicide, over 15,000.
Dude, what the fuck? This country's so fucked. But yeah, Trump's still doing rallies. She's still a fucking idiot. I want to play just a little bit of this one, and that'll be it. This shit is what. So this is the one Tish James is working on, trying to get Trump to pay
of New York to go after a private business and judge their contracts for loans with banks. If you remember this case, we had Alina Abba in court. Tish James was taking her shoes off, stinking up the whole building. Arthur Engeron was moving the cameras around the courtroom so nobody could see his game of footsie with his law clerk, passing notes to each other endlessly. Well, what they did is they civilly, essentially criminalized Trump to the tune of $450 million by saying that his loan deals were bad, even though the banks never claimed they were victimized, never complained about it at all. Every single one of his statement of disclosures, financial disclosures, says do your own vetting on my assessment of my net worth. And they did until Tish came in, that this was ever even a thing in New York. So I want to show you what happens here. We are in the appellate division in New York State. We have these 5 judges here on the panel. We're going to pay close attention to this gentleman. As this woman here comes up to the podium, you'll see this is the government's attorney from Tish's office. And the way this works in appellate proceedings is often the person presenting will give a bit of an opening statement. We've heard this here when we've covered Supreme Court oral arguments. They come in, may it please the court. My name is Robert Gouveia. Your honors, we're here today to discuss this issue about how corrupt the FBI and the DOJ are and why they should be disbanded because of their constitutional violations. And today our main argument is the following. And you give a little bit of a speech and you say thank you, right? Maybe it's a minute, 2 minutes, sometimes it's longer, but the judges will usually eventually cut you off, right? You'll hear Clarence Thomas come in. Is it true? Yes, Your Honor, it is. You're true. A boy can dream, right? But it is common to be interrupted in your oral arguments. But watch this one, okay? This one came fast. This woman didn't even finish her name, and this judge...
15 minutes as the appellee, and that I think that maybe simplifies things. May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence?
Wow.
Where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Several responses.
And I want to add to his question.
So that was just a devastating takedown. If you heard all of that, that judge had that question in his mind, and he just eviscerated her. He said, hello, these are co-equal parties, okay? This is not like some sophisticated person, unsophisticated. These are like national, international banks that Trump was dealing with. $100 million entity with $1 billion entity. Trump had disclosures. They were on even playing fields. There was no undue pressure. No one even complained about it. They did multiple business deals. Have you ever done this before at all, ever in New York? And don't tell me about your cases, by the way. I read your briefing. It's not what happened in those cases. And this other judge is jumping in too. She's like, yeah, and I want to add something to that. It's brutal, okay? She didn't even get the last syllable of her name out.
And little to no impact on the public marketplace.
No one even got hurt.
Well, maybe I'll take that first, Your Honor, and work backwards. There was absolutely a public impact and a public interest here. There are at least 4 different public harms from the kind of misconduct here. First of all, when deceptively hidden risks are injected into the market, that does hurt the counterparties, and there was harm to the counterparties here.
There was no deceptive risks. The banks did their due diligence. Trump did his due diligence.
They are not understanding the risks, they are not pricing them in properly, and they are not prepared for what might happen if the true risks come to pass. Also, as the legislature made clear in passing 6312, it was concerned with harms to the honest business people who don't do the misconduct and therefore don't get the kind of benefit that they got here.
I suppose you're referring to the fact that Trump received a lower interest rate than he might otherwise have received. But haven't you yourself conceded that the assets were sufficient to get the lower interest rate of the private wealth management direction?
Absolutely not, Your Honor. That is not conceded one bit, and the evidence is to the contrary. If you look at what the Deutsche Bank witnesses testified to, Haig said that the financial strength of the guarantor affects the pricing in terms of the loan. That's in the record at 28167 to 68, and it affects whether the private wealth management group would be allowed to do this deal at all. That's at 28150 of the record. And you have to remember something. As the statements were coming in, the Deutsche Bank was doing a stress test. So if without the fraud, the net worth and liquidity would have not look like such more, and it was out the about the incredible
factor.
Well, certainly there are multiple factors, not whether there's
to assess risk and their interest rates. The things that Trump was talking about didn't even matter to them. She's like, well, but it could have or should have.
For materiality, it's whether it's important to the overall total mix of information, because they were looking specifically at what the net worth was in order to essential statements where Deutsche Bank was
being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors.
Well, to go back to the first question about whether...
Yes, in other words, if Deutsche Bank was upset about this, if Deutsche Bank feels like they got screwed, oh, Trump lied to us. His building was 1,000 feet smaller than he said it was. Like, that's what they're arguing about. No, your property was a little bit smaller, or 2% smaller, or something like that. And so you fibbed your numbers. So if Deutsche Bank feels like they got screwed, they come back and say, hey, Trump took advantage of us, broke the contract, he made a bunch of money. Sue him because he signs that his disclosures are true and accurate. Why didn't you leave it up to the parties to rectify this? Why did Tish James have to run campaign on doing this?
Examples of this. In the first American case, the Attorney General brought a 6312 case appraisal firm.
By what those corporate actors were doing.
And that's concern is here as well, because when you have hidden risks getting injected into the market, that hurts the market and honest participants in the market. And the legislature also decided, contrary to attract and keep business.
Exactly, but was enacted to promote and protect honesty and integrity. It's the same question I asked the other side. In commercial marketplaces in New York, by stopping fraudulent and illegal businesses. To accomplish this purpose, the statute authorizes the Attorney General to bring civil enforcement proceedings on behalf of the people whenever any person shall engage in repeated fraudulent or illegal acts or otherwise demonstrate persistent fraud or illegality in the carrying on, conducting, or transacting of business. I don't read harm or threat of harm in that, but the other side is saying that that is to be read into the statute. Are there any cases where the language harm or threat to harm limits the scope of the Attorney General?
No, Your Honor, not as to liability, and not in cases like this. What the Attorney General is seeking is injunctive relief and disgorgement.
Entity in order to give her jurisdiction to initiate a claim. Here, the judge is saying, I don't see harm in the statute, so it's not even in there. So can she do whatever she wants?
There's a lot more of this, but yeah, they got smacked down. It was pretty bad. And of course, there she goes rambling. She went on Oprah. It was bad. What else? Yeah, Trump's been doing a lot of rallies. Where's the numbers again? That's fucking hilarious. These are all Democrats, by the way. Just look how fucking crazy they look. But yeah, that's pretty much the fucked up week this week in politics. There's so much more shit going on. I just try to capture it all under 20 minutes. But yeah. Catch you all next one. Stop it.